Hey guys, how's it going? In this video, we're going to be doing an unboxing and I'm going to give my first impressions on the Samsung Galaxy A31. Now, this is another addition to Samsung's A line, which is something we've been extensively covering on the channel here lately. On the left here, we have the Galaxy A51, and on the right here, we have the Galaxy A71. So this A31 is basically going to be a cheaper version of both of these phones with less processing power and some other compromises that we'll get into. I personally paid $250 for this A31, but I strongly believe this is going to drop in price, similar to what happened with the A71 and the A51. The A71 started out at about $450, but at the time of this video, it's about $375. And same story with the A51. It started out at around $350 and is now down to about $275. So it's safe to bet the same will happen here. If it went down to $175, that would be great, but I think it's going to end up at around $200. There are several variants of this phone. It comes in red, blue, white, and this prism black color here. But let's go ahead and check out the A31. Have our device on top here. It does feel a bit heavier. I'll explain why in a bit. First thing here in the box are some earbuds. These look to be the same earbuds that came with the Galaxy A51, and they're pretty cheap and low quality. We have our 15-watt fast charging brick, which is nice to see on a phone this inexpensive. We have some other companies charging twice as much as this phone and still providing a 5-watt charger in the box. And we have a USB Type A to Type C charging cable. We have our SIM ejection tool in the box, and I'm hoping we get a case here. Feels like there's one in here. Yes, we do get a case. Have our usual paperwork. This is just your standard clear plastic case. On the inside, we have a bit of a textured design. And then on the outside, it is very grippy. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and check out the A31. So first and foremost, we have the Infinity U display, which is just the teardrop design, which can be found on the Galaxy M31. We have a quad camera setup, but this camera setup is a bit compromised in comparison to the A51 and 71, which we'll get into later here. And we do have the on-screen fingerprint reader. So first hold, first feel here, it's definitely heavier than the A51 and the A71 because this has a 5,000 milliamp hour battery. These have lesser size batteries, so they're not as heavy. Aside from that, it does feel very solid despite its lower price point. So A51, A31, these look to be almost the same size in terms of their footprint, but really very similar looking devices overall. Similar button layouts here and similar I/O for our Type-C, headphone jack, and primary speaker. So we have a 6.4-inch 1080p Super AMOLED display. We have a 48 megapixel primary camera. We have 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM. This also comes in variants of 64 and 128 gigabytes of storage. This model here has 128 gigabytes. So I'm not sure if this is because of the battery size, but we have a differently designed SIM card tray here. We still do have that dual SIM setup and a micro SD card slot for expandable storage, but all of the A-series phones we've reviewed up to this point, they have this longer design, so just interesting to see these little differences. So as we transfer our data over to the A31, this is a good time to take a look at the display differences in the A51 and A31. So obviously the most noticeable thing is that teardrop design opposed to the hole punch cutout. Personally, I think this is a much better solution. This looks a lot better on the eyes and it's a lot less intrusive than the teardrop design, but I will say that once you get into day-to-day use, you'll get used to it and it's really not that big of a deal. I've been using the Galaxy M31 for the last month or so with this teardrop design, and it's really not that bad. You will get used to it. But aside from that, the same screen resolution, we just have a 6.4-inch display on the A31 and a 6.5-inch display on the A51. And you can see that really that screen size difference comes down to the chins of the phones, but really not that much of a difference. So the A31 is actually a little bit larger than the A51 while also having a slightly smaller screen. It's just in between that of the A51 and A71, which have that 6.5-inch display and the 6.7-inch display. As far as the face recognition goes, we'll take a look at that. Very quick, very responsive. Face recognition works great on this phone. I wasn't really expecting much out of it just because it's a lower spec device, but it works great. Also, one of the first things I noticed is that the power button on this phone is extremely loud. I don't know if I just got a bad unit, but here's the sound of that power button. And then here's the power button on my Galaxy A51. Maybe it doesn't sound all too different to you, but here in person, it's definitely significantly louder and it's kind of off-putting. But first things first, let's go ahead and jump into some YouTube content. So just scrolling through the home screen here, no issues at all. Same as any of my other mid-range Samsung phones. But after some long-term usage, I want to talk to you about some new experiences I've had. A new one is the phone to go with, considering all of the new So audio levels appear to be the same as that on the Galaxy A51 and A71. And here's a quick look at just looking at some content with that teardrop design opposed to the hole punch design. We have the A31 on the top and the A51 on the bottom. So in terms of viewing YouTube content, it's going to be a pretty similar experience. Let's just go ahead and jump into some applications here. Really doesn't look like it's going to take that long to jump into these applications. A little pre-screen before some stuff opens, but getting into things quickly isn't really a concern here. Yeah, you can definitely attribute that to the Samsung One UI 2.0. Great software experience. All right, let's test out some heavier tasks. Let's do some gaming. All right, so this is Stardew Valley. This is a game I show in a lot of my videos. This is a game I personally really enjoy. And this game is actually running pretty smoothly on here, which I'm very happy with. Sometimes this game can be just a little bit laggy and jittery, but luckily that's not the case here on the A31, which I'm really happy to see. Definitely uncertain about that MediaTek processor, but we're gonna go ahead and jump over to some Call of Duty Mobile here to see if it can handle something like that. Now this is just the game with like the bots at the very beginning, but the one thing I did notice is that the mini-map is lagging a lot. Like the game itself is running fine. You can see here it's pretty smooth, but I just noticed that the mini-map was kind of lagging a lot, and I've played this game on many other devices and I haven't really seen it lag like that before. And the last thing I do need to talk about here are the cameras. And the reason I need to bring up the cameras is that even though this camera module looks to be very similar as on the A51 and 71, there are some noticeable differences here. The first thing being you cannot film 4K on this phone, so the best you'll be getting out of this A31 is 1080p 30, when the A51 and A71 can film in 4K. We also have EIS, electronic image stabilization, on the A51, and that is not present here on the A31. And then just a couple of other little differences. Like the ultra wide lens is 8 megapixels opposed to the 12 megapixels on the A51. And the front facing camera is only 20 megapixels opposed to 32 megapixels on the A51. We also have less shooting modes here on the A31. So things like night vision, which are really important to a lot of people these days. Now we do have the macro lens here, but honestly in day-to-day use, I'm really not using it that much. I would use it for review purposes and it works well. I mostly use the primary lens and the wide angle lens, which this does have. So just a less feature-packed camera, but if you're getting a potentially $200 phone, you may not care all too much about 4K filming and some slight differences in megapixel counts. So first impressions here of the Galaxy A31. This phone definitely does fall in line with the A line compared to the A51 and A71. Your main difference though is going to be that processor. The MediaTek processor is definitely slower than the Exynos 9611 and Snapdragon 730, and it's just really in the small things you do, because in this video, the main things that we went through, the phone handled all of it fine, but it's really in the little things that I noticed the performance difference. So even if it came down to like typing out a text message, sometimes it just has a hard time keeping up with your typing if you're a fast typer. Very minor things that you're going to notice some stutters and lags in. So if you're a heavy smartphone user, I highly recommend you to go with something like the A51 for that slightly higher investment. This has been a great overall device with everything I've thrown at it. This one does also have little stutters and lags, but it is significantly less than what I've experienced here initially on the A31. So at the current price of about $250, it's harder to recommend this device, but when it gets down to that $200 price point, you are definitely going to have a very viable option here, especially with that 5,000 milliamp hour battery. It's definitely going to give you at least a day and a half of battery life. If you don't really use your phone all too much, it's definitely going to be easily a 2-day battery. The 6.4-inch display is great. We have the 15-watt charger, the headphone jack, the pretty loud bottom firing speaker. Definitely keep an eye out for this one when it drops in price. But what are your thoughts on the Galaxy A31? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a thumbs up. And please consider subscribing to the Shane Symonds YouTube channel today and hitting that bell icon for notifications. I hope to see you guys around for the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.